dealing with the loss of someone you care about is probably the most difficult thing of all. I would say maybe as a child, seeing the level of frustration between my parents, I had 4 different fathers, and watching them kind of, accept whatever life gave them. It's why a lot of my drive came about, is seeing my fathers be berated by my mother, who I love dearly, and just watching them break down. Probably the single most painful event of my life, but also shaped me in such a beautiful way, was when I was 11 years old. We had no money for food, and it was Thanksgiving, which in America is a big holiday feast. And so we'd been without food before. We'd have crackers and butter, and we survived, but we weren't gonna have a Thanksgiving feast. And there was a knock at the door, and I go to the door, and there's this giant guy there with groceries in each hand, and he had a pot beside him on the ground with an uncooked turkey. And I said, who are you here for? He goes, I'd like to speak to your father. And my mom and dad were yelling at each other, saying things that you can never take back. And I'm trying to make sure my younger brother and sister, they're 5 and 7 years younger, wouldn't hear any of this. And that day changed my life, because I thought it was gonna be the most exciting day. Dad, go to the front. What is it? I said, it's for you. You answered. No, it's for you. And I remember we opened the door, and I was just so excited to see my father be happy. Like, we're gonna have a feast. This is gonna be incredible. And he got angry. And he's like, we don't accept charity. He went to slam the door in the man's face, and the man's foot was there, so it bounced off his foot. He still opened the groceries. He's like, sir, I'm just the delivery guy. He said, it's not charity. Everybody has a tough time. Someone bought this, and they're sending it to you as a gift. My father said, we don't take charity. He goes to close the door again. This time the guy's shoulder was there also, so it bounced off again. And then I was standing right there, and there was this moment I'll never forget, where this man looked at my father, and he looked at me and he said, sir, don't let your ego make your family suffer. And the veins on my dad's face, on the side of his neck, I'll never forget, they bulged, like his face turned red. I thought I was gonna punch him in the face. And then there's this moment, my dad's shoulders dropped. He took the groceries, slammed the door, didn't say thank you, and stormed off. And I always remember thinking, like, how come he's not happy? You talk about pain, it's like, I love my father so much. And there's basically 3 decisions that I think everybody makes in their life, that whether they're aware of it or not, moment to moment. I figured this out afterwards, because I was so obsessed with what's wrong, because he eventually left our family. And that was the most painful thing I ever had. So it's like feeling like I failed, I blame myself, like, why couldn't I get through to my father? I was 11 years old. But later on, it helped me understand the 3 decisions are: first, you gotta decide what to focus on. Every moment of your life, there's something grabbing your focus, and you don't experience life, you experience the part of life you focus on, right? What's wrong is always available, so is what's right? And there are different kinds of focus. And my dad's focus that day was really on what he hadn't done. And I know that because he kept muttering it. He hadn't taken care of his family. There's no money for Thanksgiving. Somebody had to give us charity. And then the second decision you make about once you focus on something is, what does it mean? Is this the end or the beginning? If you think it's the end of a relationship, you're gonna behave different than it's the beginning, right? My dad's meaning was that he was worthless. And so then the third decision is, what do I do? Which, whatever meaning you come up with creates the emotions, which affects what you do, and what he decided to do is leave our family. But for me, it was like, this is amazing. I mean, we haven't having Thanksgiving. This is incredible. We got food, what a concept. And then the meaning, though, is what changed my whole life, which was, wow, strangers care. That completely changed my life. That painful experience, I couldn't deny that somebody who wanted no credit delivered this food to my family. And so what I decided to do is say, someday I'm gonna do this for another family. So when I was 17, I had 2 families, and it was a euphoric experience. I went in jeans and a t-shirt. I didn't go like the delivery guy, but I wanted to see the face of the people. And then next year was 4 people, and then it was 8. And my thing was doubling. And I had a little company, and then I got to 1 million people a year, and then I got to 4 million people a year. Then when I was doing Money Master the Game, I'm interviewing these billionaires, Jay, and I'm watching Congress cut food stamps. It's now called the SNAP program, by, I think it was $6 billion. So every family that actually needs food, and my family was one of those back then, they all have to come up with a week's worth of food out of every month. So I was like, I called my team and I said, how many people have I fed in my lifetime? I didn't know that was 42 million meals. I was like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, what if I fed 50 million people, like my entire lifetime in 1 year? And I was like, what if I did 100 million? What if I fed 1 billion people in 10 years? So that was 7 years ago. Wow. We're at 850 million meals, that's right? Amazing. And I'm gonna hit the billion earlier than what I promised and targeted, and then I've got a sustainable approach. But I tell you that because my worst day was my best day. The most painful day, the day where I felt like I'd do the least, where I felt impotent, led me to have new understandings, new skills, new capacities, new drives, new hunger. I mean, would I really be feeding 100 million people a year, 100 million meals a year if I was well fed as a child? Probably not. And I'd love to believe I'm such a perfect person, but no, I just know what suffering feels like, so I don't want anybody else to suffer, you know?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes the suffering experiences of our life, if we don't let them crush us, we let them drive us, they actually become the best day in your life. And taking your worst day and making your best day is a beautiful target for anybody. What are you gonna focus on? Right now, you have to decide what you're gonna focus on. In this second, consciously or unconsciously, the minute you decide to focus on something, you gotta give it a meaning. And whatever that meaning is produces emotion. Is this the end or the beginning? Is God punishing me or rewarding me, or is this the roll of the dice? And emotion then creates what we're gonna do, or the action. My father made 3 decisions. I know what they were briefly. His focus was, this is charity. What does it mean? I'm worthless. What do I gotta do? Leave my family, which he did. At the time, one of the most painful experiences of life. My 3 decisions gave me a different path. I said, focus on, there's food, what a concept, you know? Second, but this is what changed my life. This is what shaped me as a human being. Somebody's gift, I don't even know who it is. They're not asking for it, this is giving our family food, looking out for us. It made me believe this. What does it mean? That strangers care. And what that made me decide is if strangers care about me and my family, I care about them. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna do something to make a difference. You can know what to do and then not use it, not apply it. So really what we gotta remind ourselves is decision is the ultimate power. That's what it really is. Guilty people got guilty, sad people got sad.
And that is the power of focus. Just by changing what we focus on, we change literally what we feel. What you focus on to a great extent determines whether you're succeeding or whether you're failing in your business, in your career, with your children, in your intimate relationships as well. So focus really determines the quality of our lives. Whether or not you're fulfilled or whether or not you just feel stressed is really a matter of focus. And ultimately your achievement level is clearly directed on where do you focus? Where do you put your energy, your emotion, your time? But the challenge is that most of us don't direct it consciously. In fact, a lot of us are incredibly stressed because we don't consciously direct our focus. Worry is an achiever word for fear. We're fearful that something bad's gonna happen, so we put a lot of attention into it. And sometimes it's at the expense of things that are much more important, like our family or our health. Sometimes we worry about things that'll never happen. And I think that what happens for most of us is fear gets our focus. And it's natural, it's our survival instinct to avoid pain. But we've got to break out of it if we want an extraordinary quality of life and think differently. And I'm going to show you some ways that you can do that for yourself. The second thing that tends to get our focus is things that can give us pleasure, especially immediate pleasure. Why? Well, think about it. We're stressed a lot of the time. We want to get out of that stress, so we look for something to make ourselves feel good, because that'll happen real quick. And very often we pick things that make us feel good for the moment, but don't really make our life better long term. Very often what you'll do to feel good is go clean off your desk, right? I used to do this all the time. I got all these projects to do, I don't know where to start, I'm overwhelmed. Oh, my desk is messed up. Let me just arrange everything here. Because you know what? I can complete all that and feel really good about myself. Because truthfully, self-esteem, and I hate that term because it's so overused, but a person's sense of identity, our sense of certainty about our lives, our sense of worth, is tied directly to our feeling that we control events, not events control us. When we feel like events are controlling us, our self-esteem drops, our level of stress increases. So what a lot of us do is try and get control of it by doing little things or by doing something we're really good at. You know, let's say you spend a lot of time in your work and you don't spend much time with your kids because at work you feel like you're in control. And gosh, kids are a challenging thing. They're so different, they're so unique. You think you get all handled and they surprise you with something new, right? So very often we try to focus on those things we feel good about. Sometimes it's the expense of the overall value of our life. And again, we're reacting still. The third area that tends to get our focus, if we don't put the stakes in the ground up front and say, here's what I'm gonna focus on, here's what I want for my life, is sure enough, we tend to get caught up in other people's demands. And then our life becomes about responding to other people's urgencies and reacting. You might say, but Tony, you know, my supervisor is gonna do that, or my boss is gonna do that. Yes, but I think you're going to find when you learn this OPUS system, you're going to be able to get your boss to get results they never had before. You're going to be able to do more for them than they've ever seen before. And you'll be able to literally help them to manage you and themselves more effectively if you have a supervisor. If you're in charge, quote unquote, then I think you're going to find that there's going to be a great deal of fulfillment and you won't be responding to everybody's demands there either. Does that sound like it might be useful? I can tell you something, as long as you're responding to the things that concern you, the potential for pain or worry, as long as you're trying to get a quick fix of feeling good, as long as you're responding to people's demands, you're living a life of reaction, and you won't get the level of fulfillment, much less the results that you really deserve. I got a question for you though. Do you think the minute you turn and you do the right thing, because now I'm doing the right thing, I'm turning the right direction, do you immediately get rewarded for that? See, we have a thing called momentum that's still going on. We're in what we call lag time right now, where we're doing the right things, but we're not getting the reward because of the old momentum. It's kind of like you ate like heck for 30 years and now you've eaten well for 2 days and you go, gosh, I'm not getting the result yet. Keep focusing, keep eating the right way and it'll turn. But you got to keep the faith. You can't look back at the wall because that's what you want to do. You want to look back and go, it's not working. I want to see the failure. I want to see the crash. Fortunately, keeps holding my head. And what happens? Sure enough, we turn. And a few seconds later, the wheels catch and we turn and we miss the wall by about 2 or 3 feet. My heart is beating out of me. He goes, did you learn? And I said, I learned. Did I learn? No. Took 3 or 4 more times of doing this, of him forcing my head before I finally got it down. I got a very important question for you though. If you focus on where you want to go, are you guaranteed not to have problems? Guaranteed not to hit the wall? The answer is no. You could still hit the wall. But let me ask you an alternative question. If you focus on what you fear, if you focus on the problem, if you focus on the challenge ahead of you, and you drive yourself into that, are you going to crash? The answer is 100% yes. So there's no guarantee in life, but if we focus on what we want, our outcome, which is what OPA stands for, the first O in OPA is outcome. What do I really want? If we focus on that, our chances increase geometrically. If we focus on our fear, we got a real problem. So the obvious question becomes, okay, well then how do I control my focus, Tony? Do I just think positive? Well, let me give you a clue. I don't believe in positive thinking. I don't believe you should go to your garden and say, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, and do a bunch of affirmations. I got news for you. The weeds will take your garden. I believe in something really simple. I believe in seeing life as it really is, but not worse than it is. See, most people say, well, I'm just a skeptical person. I'm just a pessimistic person. What they're really saying is I'm fearful. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to be disappointed again. But I'm here to tell you in life, you got to see it as it is and not worse than it is. You can't try and protect yourself, or you protect yourself from success. You protect yourself from joy. You got to get your hopes up to make life work. So see it as it is, but not worse than it is. Second, you have to see it better than it is. Otherwise, there's no drive to make things better. You got to get a vision for what you want. What's the outcome? What's the vision for your life? Otherwise, you'll get caught up in the to-dos of daily living and you'll say, gosh, I don't know what it is, but I feel like my life's about making a living instead of really experiencing life. So if you get a view of what your outcome is, of what you really want, wow, the game changes for you. And then once you know how it is and then you have a vision for how you want it to be, then the obvious third step to succeeding is you got to make it the way you want it.
The only reason people shift is they hit a threshold. I'll give you the chemistry of transformation. You see how it works for you.
Okay.
Like there's 5 elements that when they're there, people transform. So the first one that usually happens is satiation. Satiation means there's nothing wrong, but you've been doing the same thing over and over and over again. After a while, if your favorite meal was steak and lobster and you have it every day, 3 times a day, there's gonna be a point where you go like, there's nothing wrong with steak and lobster, but man, I'm satiated, right? And that makes you look around, what might I do different? But it doesn't usually make you change. It just opens your mind to change. Then you need the second element, and that is dissatisfaction. Now it's not just you're doing it and it's not as good. Now you're doing it and it doesn't feel good. And you start to feel that in the relationship side. Just like this, I don't want to feel this way. Then that's still not enough. That makes you look more for a change. That's the second piece of chemistry. Wow. The third piece of chemistry is now you hit a threshold. Threshold's like, you ever been in a relationship like way too long?
Oh, yes,
yeah,
brother.
You knew it was wrong.
Sorry. I want to apologize too to a couple of women. Yeah.
But
I should have.
You knew it was wrong. You knew it wasn't serving them or serving you, but you stayed because it was certain. It was hard to change. Well, what if I'm alone?
I was afraid to say certain things. Yeah.
But if you got to the point where the way you stay is you go, it'll get better. It was better in the past, or you jump to the future and say it's better. But there's a day we hit a threshold, you go, it's been painful in the past, it's painful today, it's gonna be painful forever, I'm the F out of here, right? Yeah. That's when people start to change. When you hit a threshold, you get the fourth piece, you get an insight. And the insight is what's really true, and usually figure it out. It's not my partner, it's not my job, it's me. What's going on in me? And you make a distinction, and that creates an opening. Like there's a chance for you to change your life in that moment. You had that when you were here and you couldn't feel anything with this girl. You felt dissatisfaction. You eventually got to a threshold and you finally said, wait a second, these drugs are just making me numb. I got to do something. And you had to jump through the opening because you didn't know what was on the other side. There's uncertainty. A lot of people go through all that and they get to the opening and it only stays open for a few moments. If you don't do something with the insight, it closes and you start all over again. You got to go through all the time period of getting satiated and getting dissatisfied again, hitting a threshold. And some people just never jump through the hole. So I used to kick people through the opening.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen a couple videos where you've done it. I'm like, whoa.
So, but
that
now,
lady's all right.
But now what I do more is I bring them to the opening over and over and get them to jump through so they get the muscle. Because otherwise, it might last a year or two, but it's not going to last forever. If you do it, you got a chance of it lasting for a long time. But you went through that chemistry, but very few people do.
Yeah.
You got dissatisfied enough.